Hey, this is Kathleen, and nice to have you here. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe and share. Really appreciate that. I wrote the book, The Game of Life, and everything is in life is really like playing a game and learning how to play it. When you see life as a game, the Bible talks about come like children and be playful. And so this is one way to do that is by learning. It's really remembering who we are. It's not new and it's not new age. It's actually old age. It's going back in time to the biblical times and remembering that we are actually free and that we are self-governing and that we don't have to listen to overreaching bullies that want to put poison in our food, air, and water, want to control if we can fly or not because they want to track our every move. That's enough of this nonsense. I really feel that, in all honesty, that is to show us in the game, if you think of it as a game, is like, what will it take for you to stand up? What will it take? How much freedom are you willing to give up? We were just tested in the early 20s with this. I said no, and I'm telling you, a lot of people said go pound sand to their employers and to the government, to lots, like walking in. I flew all the time, and I never wore a mask. And they had this fake stuff having people thrown off. Did you actually ever see someone get thrown off? I didn't. I flew 6 times and didn't have a mask, so I don't know. And I worked for one of the biggest bullies that was making the thing. So what I'm here today is to help share with you some basic foundational, like what is what. Let's go back and remember who we are, shall we? And remember, I'm going to do a comparison. So this material might be new to some of you, or the way that I'm presenting it might be new. And to some of you, it's just hopefully presented in a new fashion that will help aha moments or something like that. Anyway, I do teach on this, and I teach it and I say this in different ways because when you hear it differently, it starts sinking in. But I'm also a very visual person, so I'm going to actually share my screen with you on what I came up with. So a living soul is a man or woman. And in the Bible, it says that we must claim that we're alive. We must claim that we're living. Adam fell asleep after all. When did he wake up? And the Bible talks about wake up, wake up, wake up. So let's do that, shall we? And flesh and blood being created by God. That's what a living soul is. Everyone is equal as a living soul. Everyone has dominion over land, air, and water. Law, that's law, L-A-W. And then you come up with person. So person is, by definition, in the statutory. So first there's God. God made mankind and earth and, all the animals and plants and birds in the sea. And then man made statutes and codes and policies and BS and control. Okay. And so that can never be above its creator. And since mankind is its creator, it's time for us to remember and take back that self-governing feature. So person, individual, these are definitions that I give in my class and I teach on. And these entity, human, everybody's like, I'm human rights or human resources, human this. You have 0 rights if you're human. You have 0 rights if you're a person. You have 0 rights if you're a citizen. You have 0 rights if you're an individual. What gives you rights are your God-given rights. And that, my friend, is as a living soul, man and woman, or woman, not obviously both at the same time, but man or woman, mankind, because man is kind. So these person, individual, citizen, resident, pair that rents from the state. These are legal, commercial, and artificial constructs created by government, statute, codes, titles, administrative policies, procedures, terms, and conditions. I will tell you that when you have terms and conditions that violate your rights, then you can write a correspondence to whoever it is, be it Zoom or YouTube or Google or whatever, and say, hey, your terms, conditions, policies, and procedures violate my rights. I invoke, claim, and declare my rights. And I make your policies where they violate those rights null and void. Because first in time is first in right. I talk about this in my class. Here's how you can restate the worldview clearly and consistently while keeping the terminology precise. Words matter. Words cast spells. So living soul versus the artificial entity. Okay, a living soul, origin, created by God, creator, source, whatever you want to put it, and nature. The artificial entity, person, or individual is created by government, registration, statute codes, titles, and stuff like that, controllers, okay? And then the substance of where it comes from is living souls, man and woman, mankind, is breathing. We're flesh and blood. We're endowed with the Spirit, the Holy Spirit. And your name, Kathleen Ramsey. That name is owned by the state. And I dive really deep into this in my class. That name is owned by the state. Some people call it a straw man. It is owned by the state. I think of it as a sole proprietorship. You're signing as an authorized representative on behalf of that name. That name is on a piece of paper called live birth certificate. Live birth definition is in every state constitution. Okay, so paper, name, it's a number. It's actually, if you look at your birth certificate, and believe me, I have, there's numbers on that. Those numbers correlate with trust and with the Department of Treasury and banking and everything. And your Social Security number has numbers on it as well. So that's all commerce. And again, that's made by man. And those titles come as artificial person. Natural person is going to default. We'll get to that in a minute. The lawful standing under, when you're standing and you know who you are, that you are a living being, a living, breathing flesh and blood, man or woman, you stand under the divine law. Doesn't get any higher than that. Ecclesiastical and natural law. And then it comes in equity, and then comes in common law. So I add more than what I show here, okay? Under statutory is the person. It's statutory, it's civil, it's commercial. So you go in and you bow down to everybody and you're like, hey, yo, judge, I don't know you from Adam, but here, let me hand you over all my rights. Let me hand you over all my power. Let me tell you that I'm going to let you judge me and I will stand under you because I'm going to say I understand. Stop doing that. Just stop that, okay? We can have a compassionate heart, but we can reclaim who we are and what our rights are. Identification. Autograph is a living soul, mankind. Thumbprint, which I do on my documents, I print them and I autograph them. I put sometimes a stamp and I put my thumbprint. That is to give living testimony versus a signature. That's dead people. It's usually in an all caps name. It doesn't mean that Kathleen Ramsey needs to be all caps. It can be a capital K, capital R for Kathleen Ramsey, for example. Those are licenses. I have to have a license to drive a car. I have to have a license to sell insurance. I have to have a license to fly, maybe, right? Because you got to have an ID, right? Certificate, like birth certificate. So status of a living soul is you are the beneficiary. In God we trust. Is there anything more beautiful than that? It's sovereign. It's freedom. It's authenticity. And then under artificial person, you are either treated as a trustee. The courts really want to play on that. They want to change their role and you change yours to show, to have a different role playing going on. And sometimes a judge will change her hats of titles of roles while they're in their little black robes, and you want to catch them on that. That's something that I dive into more. But you're playing the trustee, a surety. Your life force as a living soul is highly valued. I just want to tell you, if you're watching this, you are so valued. You're like a multimillionaire and you have no idea. And there's so much value in you. And there's the society in the game is keeping you down and making you feel limited and not worthy and not enough so that they can grab that life force energy and control you with it. It's time to stop that. So your surety, you have so much value, you're being traded. And that's where the debtor comes in instead of being the creditor. As a living soul, you are a creditor. As a name, a person, an individual, I'm a person, I'm a human, then you're a debtor. And there's a way to transform all of that. And the capacity of a living soul acts by right and conscious. We're consciously making our decisions. We're aware of our decisions. This is really holding you accountable to walk in honor. And I teach how to walk in honor. We weren't really taught that. In fact, we're taught how to be dishonorable. If you watch any movie, any show, it's all dishonor. It's like, hey, let me screw this person over on that person and let me be mean to that person. It doesn't really show us how to hold ourselves with integrity and honor and doing what is right. Very few do, or they just have a glimpse of it. It's really about returning back to that, returning back to honor. So, and dignity and integrity. And so a person, well, that's the game, isn't it? They act as if they're privileged, yet they feel unworthy. Such a mind game, isn't it? And they're consenting without knowing, because your silence is consent. So what the government and the companies do is they put poison in your water and then you don't write them, or they make it so impossible that they're silent, and their silence is your consent. So it's just a game of learning how to speak your truth and speak up and really step into that power. And the remedy, well, that's where the fun hits. That's where the game changes. So when we learn who we are, when we learn that we're a living soul with rights, all rights, invoke, claim, and declare, then it's not just equity. Equity is the path that you do it. It's being able to stand in that divine authority, that divine law, the ecclesiastical principles, if you will. And that's where you build up your vibration frequency. You build up that life force energy. And that's where you're walking in truth and integrity and honor. Like you're radiating it, right? And truth is of the utmost importance. And being honorable is knowing if you've made a mistake to say, look, I erred. Please forgive me. And forgiving yourself, right? And correcting that. We want to correct it. That's how I thought that I was right, but I see when you present to me how it was taken or with new information, how that truth may have been a misconception or something like that. We're willing to and able to backstep and rescind and repent and correct our errors. On the artificial person, it's like you don't really care, because you're just going to like do what you want. And then law enforcement comes up, says, oh, you're a bad little girl or boy. And so we're going to put you in handcuffs, do this, that, and the other. And you're going to obey us because because they're governing us, because we're not showing that we can self-govern. If you can self-govern, then you're going to not sit there and constantly disobey the man-made laws where they don't violate your right. I mean, speeding, okay? A lot of people are doing it, and then they're like mad because they got pulled over or something. I mean, come on, that's not honorable. Like, you got to act in honor. Anyway, language, because words cast spells. That's why they call it spelling. I love word trickery. Love, love, love it. Have a whole section in my class on it. So person is like wearing a mask. You literally are like a little itty bitty made up person. So I'm Kathy Ramsey. Well, I know that Kathy Ramsey is the sole proprietorship, and I, the living soul, the breathing, and I make that name come to life. At all times, I'm a living soul. At all times, I'm a woman. I think of it as an actor. Is Brad Pitt the actor, or is Brad Pitt always Brad Pitt? Brad Pitt is always a living, breathing flesh and blood, as we know. And then, but during that title role, guess what? He's accountable, and so are you. And so person, it's a legal role. It's representative capacity. It's a fiction in commerce. It's a fictitious. Really embody and start thinking about how it's all fictitious. A name is not you. You are not a name. You are so much more. You are a living, breathing flesh, and it's time to remember and value who you are. An individual is a single unit of an organization. So I'm an individual. Okay, yeah, not something you really want to claim being, but go for it. Still, it's a legal entity. At the end of the day, it's fictitious. It's fake, fake, fake. Human, again, fake. It's from the Latin humus, earth. In many sovereignty teachings, this denotes a creature of the state, not a living soul. You can be subject to Roman Pintoff if you're human. So you may not want to be under the Vatican. I don't know. Or Rome, but who knows? And then there's the living soul, the highest of the high, the living soul, the man or woman, mankind, the true being of flesh and blood and breathing, not subject to statutes except by consent and being mindful of that consent. We want to come with clean hands and clean our contracts. I teach contracts. I teach how to remove legal ease. No attorney can say, oh, she's teaching law or legal. No. I reverse that, because legal is the undoing of God's law. I teach how to put God's law back in there and remove the legal ease. So big difference there. And I teach it so that you know it. You embody it. So yes, within the interpretive framework, calling oneself a natural person, your default is person. Okay, we're in this world. We're not of this world. If you're in this world and you're like, I'm a person, even anything you put before that doesn't denote that. The default will always be the entity, the fictitious world, because this world we're in is fictitious. So just be mindful of that. And it would contradict. Like another saying is, the cop pulled me over and said, oh, are you a sovereign citizen? And I said, with all due respect, that's an oxymoron. I can't be living, sovereign, and dead, a person or citizen. Okay, like if you look up the definitions of both, and we default always to the fictitious, then I can't be living and dead at the same time. So it's going to default to fictitious, because I don't have a state of mind to know that a sovereign citizen's defaulting. And so therefore I'm like, I don't know who I am. So I'm just going to say, yes, that's what I am. And your default is you become like a ward of the state, because you don't know who you are. So let's remember who we are. When a judge or a cop or someone says, well, what's your name? Say, I don't go by a name, but my mom calls me, or my friends call me, and I'm a friend to everyone. I have friends everywhere. Another way to say is, I'm a woman, Kathleen. I am a living soul, flesh and blood, not a person, individual, citizen, resident, individual, or human. I operate in the private under divine and natural law. I like to add ecclesiastical as well, not under the statutes and that govern artificial entities. Hopefully this is starting to be like, wait a minute. Just because we learned in school that, I'm a person, I'm a human, I'm an individual, I'm a pair that rents, a parent. And people wonder why Child Protective Services come in. It's because it's a child. A child is an entity owned by the state. They're a ward of the state. And so if you're going to be a parent, you might want to say, I am a mom, and this is my offspring, my son and my daughter. I own them. They're my property. You're going to claim them as yours, because that has more power. And then you can say, no, don't come in my door. It's like inviting a vampire into your door. You might want to put the 10 Commandments at your door. They're on my door. To come into my house, you will and do agree, because to step through the front door, it's by agreement. I have a note on my door. Okay, we are operating in two different realms. So think of superheroes. My kids and I used to play a game all the time about, what superhero power would you have and what would you be able to do? And let's imagine that when we were taking road trips or anything, we would come up with all kinds of stories. So two operational realms. So when you're watching a superhero movie, whatever it is, there's always two realms, right? There's this whole realm going on that the superpowers are like Superman or the X-Men. They have superpowers and they're fighting some other superpower bad. So there's good and evil, right? And they're fighting each other. But like the common folk don't really know what's going on. And they're just kind of oblivious. Sometimes they see something, but who knows? It could be like the Men in Black movie and zap them. And then they don't remember. And that's in a lot of movies. Anyway, so there's two different realms going on. Let's talk about those realms. One's the public realm. It's the statutory realm. It's governed by constitution, statutes, administrative codes, titles, policies, procedures, conditions, court rules enacted by legislators and Congress. The core idea is collective regulation. I would replace regulation with absolute control because that's where it's going. And it's about commercial, your property. When you're a person, an individual, citizen, you are property of another. And because you don't know who you are. And I dive really more deep into this in my class and my lawful foundations. The core idea here is voluntary association and agreements made in honor, duty to cause no harm. That's what the opposite. Sorry, I jumped down. A governing source is constitution on public, on private. It's ecclesiastical and divine law, natural law, and then common, which is done through equity procedures. Common law principles of contract, it's trust, it's consciousness, it's honor, it's integrity, it's do no harm. And then the core idea in public is the collective regulations. And the core idea in private, equity, divine realm is voluntary association and agreements made in honor and a duty to cause no harm. So there's private agreements. So you go to country clubs, the bar association is a private member agreement. Country clubs are private member. Sororities and fraternities have private members. Some churches are private members only. Some meetings are private, like Boy Scouts and different things like that, right? Those are going to start popping up more and more because people are realizing, they're remembering who they are and knowing how to write your contracts and coming with clean hands so you don't enter into more bad contracts and keep the cycle rolling. This is how you break the cycle, is to know how to remove the legal ease, to know how to create a contract where you can 110% comprehend every single word and sentence. And so can the person that, or not the person, sorry, caught myself, the other living soul that you're contracting with. It's like kind, man and woman, living soul with living soul, or entity with entity. No cross, you can't cross. So it's either an entity, and if you're not sure, it defaults to entity, your name, your status as an individual person. I don't know if this is clear or not. Hopefully it is. And then where it shows up. So in public, licensing, taxation, corporate registration, traffic codes, commercial, criminal law, control. And then in private, in equity, it's private contracts, like I just said. You can do private matrimony agreements, private divorce agreements. You can do private member agreements called PMAs. Trust, it's ministries. You can have your own ministry if you believe in scalar energy or sound healing or chiropractic services, natural remedies, natural modalities. I'm trying to say the right words here. And you do mediation. I don't do arbitration, by the way. It has it in here. I don't recommend arbitration. I can answer that for you if you need. Key distinction. In the public realm, a man or woman operate through government recognized privileges. You get privileges and benefits from the government. Okay, privileges and benefits. And we're all like, hey, that's a nice little benefit. That's a nice little privilege. The thing that is hidden in that is, oh, I'm going to take this privilege or this benefit from the state, from the government, from the corporation in exchange for my rights. And we saw that in the 20s, where government and corporations were like, you must obey and put something up your nose or in your body or over your mouth so that you can't breathe. And that, so that you can have this privilege, the privilege to work. Are you freaking kidding me? I mean, don't get me started on that one. Anyway, those are privileges and benefits. It was an exchange for your rights, but they failed to tell you that part. That's okay. It's part of a game. We're learning and we're growing and we're evolving and we're transforming, right? In the private realm, a man or woman operates by private right through agreement. We come together and we agree. It's not one-sided, and you don't need to hire an attorney to tell you every time you hire an attorney. Okay, I'm not giving legal advice. I am giving you truth. When you hire an attorney and you don't know what you're signing, because it's all legalese, and God forbid an attorney tell you what it truly means, especially the all caps. Be careful for the double meaning on that. They've taken an oath to each other, to protect the person, definition, the individual, to keep you from your rights. And so you hand over and say, hey, go sign this. I'm going to give you signature and bind my soul energetically. Let's take back those contracts and say, no. If you can't write this so that I can comprehend every single word and sentence, and I can't sit there and say, I don't understand that, you need to rewrite it. And I'm not going to pay you to rewrite it because you should have wrote it right in the first place. What I do is I teach you how to write those words and formulate those. What is it that you're trying to say? Let's articulate that correctly. And that's where we're going back to. We're going back to remembering that, because that's what's honor. That's what's integrity. That's what's freedom. Okay, both realms exist, right? Because you're always living and breathing. We kind of forgot. Like sometimes I think people really forgot that they're living. And we get so caught up with, I'm this title, I'm a president, or I'm a teacher, or I'm a governor, or I'm a boss to somebody, and therefore I'm big bad wolf. No. You're all equal until you take a title. When you take a title, you are the servant. Let's remind them, everyone with a title, let's remind them, because at all times they're always living. And so we hold them accountable on that realm. And you can hold them accountable on that realm. That's where the fun begins, because that's where we really hold the line. We're like, hey, I'm going to come in honor. I expect you to come in honor. If you're putting poison in my food, you need to step down or clean it up. Which would you prefer? Both realms exist, and the choice is yours. Knowledge is power. My people will perish for lack of knowledge. So let's learn and have fun with this. This doesn't have to be overwhelming. I don't know if what I just presented, makes sense. Hopefully it does. Let's move on to how legal professionals, the bar card holders, maintain the public system, because they took an oath, and we don't know the oath, right? I don't know the oath. I'm not an attorney, and I don't give legal advice. But they took an oath. They took several oaths. Maybe they took an oath to the fraternity or sorority. They took an oath to the bar. They take an oath to the state. They take an oath to the federal government, depending on what country you're in. So they're taking all these oaths. And the Bible warns about that. Well, it warns about scribes, which is attorneys. But it also warns about taking oaths and then breaking those oaths. So they take an oath to each other. What is that oath? Are they protecting the lie of the fictitious world, the matrix, the Babylon society that we live in? So let's look at that for a minute. It isn't that every attorney is malicious, all right? I'm not saying that every attorney is bad or anything like that. I truly believe man is kind, and every attorney is a man or woman. They're mankind. They're part of mankind. They went into a profession, a title, in hoping to do good, hoping to help others. And they can still do that. They can start cleaning up contracts, right? But the bar system is simply trains its members, because it's private, to function inside the statutory structure of the public realm. So they're programmed and conditioned to know those statutes and codes and case law, right? And their duty of office is to uphold those statutes and procedural rules, not to interpret divine or natural law. They're not, as far as I've been told, they're not taught ecclesiastical principles in law, equity, natural law, or divine law. And so if anyone's here saying, well, some people may not believe in God, Kathleen, or creator or source, all I have to say is just take a nice deep breath and breathe out. And what was that? Nothing that you just breathed in. It's called air, right? What's that wind that you can feel on your skin? And enough said. Case closed. It exists. And that's just my opinion. You don't have to agree. Because language and procedure in that system of the bar system, the statute, the control, the commerce, right? It's very technical. People, their whole job is to make the person, the citizen, the individual, the pair that rents, the child, feel disempowered because we're so used to handing our power over and over, like regurgitating over and over, just hand it over. It's like worshiping a false idol. You're just handing it over to the teacher. Can I go to the bathroom? I mean, it's courtesy to say, yo, I'm going to the bathroom. Okay. I have to go. I'm going. And instead of always asking permission, I mean, there needs to be some structure, but as if the teacher can say no. I mean, seriously, we're programming our offsprings at such a young age. So it's all about disempowering. It's no wonder that there's so many depression and so many people on those drugs for, stress and anxiety and having anxiety attacks. It's because they forgot who they were. And hey, the system is rolling like a well-oiled machine, but we're just going to dismantle that and reverse engineer it a little bit. It's tricked us into contracts that are binding our soul. And those contracts their appearance, we didn't understand. You didn't understand when you got a live birth certificate that it gave you a name to sole proprietorship. And when you got old enough to sign that name on a check or in a contract, you didn't know that, hey, I'm an authorized representative for the sole proprietorship that is truly owned by the state and the government, right? I mean, it's not like they taught us that in school, because why wouldn't they? Wait a minute. Shouldn't they? Shouldn't they be teaching that in school? Hey, yo, government history teachers, where's that history on this? I know it because I've researched it. So you can imagine the confusion that's come up with this. It feels like such deception. Well, it is. It is utterly deception, right? But that's part of the game. When you think of it as a game, you can increase that vibration frequency. You can level up and say, wait a minute, it's a game. So how do I play? What's the rules of the game, right? Legally, all these contracts are implied consent. You didn't realize what you were signing, and because the intention was to deceive. So it kind of makes it fraud, back to the conception of it. But again, that's not legal advice. It's presuming context through silence. Silence is consent, and silence can and should be given. Silence is acceptance. And it works both ways. And that's the beauty of that. Now, the lawful remedy path, because we always want solutions. We don't want just doom and gloom, do we? I certainly don't. So the lawful remedy path here. First of all, honor and compassionate heart, because heart is the matter. I had somebody once tell me, oh, we're all born with a horrible heart or a mean heart, or the Bible says that, the heart's deceiving or whatever. The world we live in is deceiving. I just went through that. But the heart, when a heart has set honor and good intentions, then compassion comes. And when you can respond with compassion, everything can change. And it's not that hard to learn. There's some breathing exercises to do and different ways to do this. One of them, remember Adam fell asleep. He was in a deep, deep sleep. Bible talks about sleeping. Education. Why? Because remember, my people will perish for lack of knowledge. So let's learn. Let's get thirsty for knowledge. Learn how the two realms operate. And when you're operating in one, always be mindful that you're alive. Always be mindful of the two realms so that you know where you're standing, where you're walking. You know your state of mind. It's an state of mind. And when you do that, when you're coming together and you're contracting like in the private, you're mindfully aware. There's points of authority. I have, points of authority. I have a document on points of authority. It has a whole page and a half. And I have all kinds of fun stuff on that. I put it in my court documents. I put it in notices sometimes just to, remind little title servants maybe their place. It's reminding them that equity is honor, and equity looks to the intent rather than the form. What was the intention? Was the intention when they did the birth certificate to deceive? Kind of seems like it. I mean, it just kind of seems like the intent was definitely to deceive. But now we're remembering, right? And he who seeks equity must do equity. So when you're going around and you're like, oh, I'm not going to pay my credit card debt, and I'm not going to pay this, and I'm not going to do that. Is that honorable? There's ways to write and ask and be in honor and hold that to the nth degree. So just remember, if you're going to want to have honor to you and to correct these errors, to rescind these contracts, we must come with equity, with honor. Number 2 for remedy is self-identification and declaration. I invoke, I declare, I claim. Record and privately declare oneself a living soul, a man, a woman of peace, and a friend to all. I'm friends to everyone. I have friends everywhere. And I do that in the notices that I write. I do that in the correspondence that I write. I do that in the court documents that I write. I do that in what I teach. I write that in all my contracts that are private, very much so. So learning that is power. And state that you're a man or a woman living, acts only in honor, cause no harm, and require full disclosure in all dealings. See, it's simple, simple, simple. Number 3 is to operate privately and transparently. We want to be transparent of our intention, and we can do that through a variety. As many contracts as you have on the public side, those same contracts can be done as long as they're intent and have integrity on the private side. And so you're just not limited. It seems like some people think that there's one, it's a private member agreement. It's vast. You can do partnership agreements, private joint ventures, private service agreements, private confidentiality agreements, all kinds of, it's endless. And use clear notices and contracts and showing your voluntary association. You want to be able to say who you are in the contract and communicate. So we're going to go into number 4, communication before confrontation. Wouldn't that be nice? Think of all the relationships that you've been in where if people had, and people is not defined, you can define people, it's not person. How many have families that have discrepancies and it's from a lack of communication? Somebody has you did this to me 30 years ago, and therefore you've never changed, and you're that same horrible person from 30 years ago. Yeah, they probably need to do a little inner work and forgiveness on themselves and others. And we've all been through that, right? We all have that. It's a constant forgiveness of ourselves and others, always forgiving and being thankful for the experience so that we could grow, because without any experience, without that confrontation in our life, we wouldn't grow, we wouldn't evolve, and we wouldn't transform. So learning to communicate before we have confrontation and the methods to do that. So when you're facing a public demand, respond like with honor. I'm willing to comply upon proof of lawful duty and jurisdiction. One of the things that I said to my employer, Pfizer, when they asked me so kindly in an email from a stranger with a big title to stick something up my nose or put something in my body, I said, yeah, yo, thanks so much for that offer. That to use an invasive medical procedure that's tantamount to emotional, physical, and spiritual abuse. Can you show me your jurisdiction in my body, mind, and soul? Because Creator gave me that jurisdiction. So it's reclaiming, learning how to speak, to reclaim who you really are. And remember, that gives you your rights. And it's powerful. Avoid aggression. We've all had it, right? I mean, we're in this world, so it's all about aggression and anger and hate and low vibes and blame and shame and all of that. Let's leave all that BS behind and let's rise up. Let's learn how to work through that. I had to work through it. I had a lot of that: resentment, blame, shame, abandonment, tons of abandonment issues. And it's working through that and seeking to comprehend. I don't like to say understand, but comprehend the correspondence, the compassionate heart. Equitable resolutions are where conflict arises. Use mediation. I don't use arbitration, mediation. And so it's about self-governance. I have that in all my contracts on how that's going to look, what that feels like, and how to resolve it. If you know how to resolve a problem before it happens, and you've got the places and you're communicating that to the other parties involved, then it makes it a lot easier, right? And it doesn't mean I'm going to take you to court and I'm going to let a stranger judge our situation. No, let's come with a more honorable solution, right? You don't want to be compelled into the public court system. Write your contract so it keeps you out of that. But you have to be able to have self-governance in your contracts. And then service and compassion. Always want to be of service. Use what has been learned to uplift yourself and others, right? No attacking. The whole world's on enough of attack. We've all been abused by the society, the game. So let's be kind, shall we? And the highest remedy is always reconciliation and restoration, and not punishment necessarily. I mean, when punishment is deserved, of course, it's not really punishment. It's how can we help isolate this person so that they can reflect on what they've done, but not harm anybody in the meantime. So there's different ways to do that. And this is the end. The guiding principles is stand as a living soul in peace, speak only truth, cause no harm, and let every contract be in full disclosure and mutual consent. We don't want those one-sided adhesion contracts that we're so used to. That's the meeting point. That's the balance. That's where dark and light, good and evil meet in the middle and have a beautiful dance. So let's be in honor. And that middle is really the bridge between the two realms, right? It's being on that bridge and knowing. So until next time, I hope you found some value in this. Please let me know. I like your feedback as long as it's constructive and communicating. Be a little bit compassionate, shall you? And like and share. Come and join us and be a member of our faith-based organization. Till next time, roll the dice, play the game of life, and have some fun. Thanks so much.